Sure. Let's see. Are we good on? We are good on Rumble. Good morning. Good on YouTube. Good on X. We are active on Facebook, and looks like LinkedIn is working as well. Instagram's working. We are suspended from TikTok, so there will be no TikTok until Friday of this week. That's when the suspension will be lifted. Technically, it's lifted Thursday, but it'll be in the middle of the stream, so we will be back on TikTok on Friday, unless I'm able to get the suspension lifted sooner, which I'm not sure that's going to happen. So let me get my pinned comment in place over here. Tell me where you are checking in from as we get started. Tell me your locations where you are checking in from. Today we are going to talk about Newton's three laws of motion. This is when I am suspended on TikTok, I tend to hold off on the current event topic simply because TikTok is the largest and most active audience. So I'll save those for then. And I'll give you all a sampling here today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week of the professional and personal development stuff. Because this stuff matters, honestly, just to be so all of you understand, this is from my perspective. This stuff matters more than the current event stuff. Like I could talk about Donald Trump and something happened in the government, et cetera, et cetera. I could easily talk about those things. But if we're talking about growth and getting better and on a real life level, this stuff matters more simply because it has a longer tail and it just can be directly applied to whatever you have going on. Whereas current event stuff is interesting to talk about and it gets everybody's attention. It's the reason why if I was to talk about Donald Trump or the flooding that happened in Texas and those kind of things, a lot of people would be engaged because it's something that just happened and it has everybody's immediate attention. But when you're done talking about that, what is that actually going to do to make you better, help you make more money, make you a more valuable person in your community, at your job, in your business, in your industry, in your field? How is that helping you do anything? Honestly, it's not helping you do anything. It's not. It's really just, I guess you can call yourself informed or educated on a certain subject. Now, a question that may come up here is then why do you even talk about those things? I talk about those things because they provide for me a platform through which to show my skill of articulation and communication. That's really what I'm using the current events for. I'm not using the current events because I really give that much of a damn about current events or that it matters that much to me to talk about Donald Trump or the P. Diddy trial or anything else, Jeff Epstein, Elon Musk, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mind talking about them because again, it provides a platform, it gives a whole bunch of people paying attention to you, and more people paying attention creates more energy, et cetera, which is cool. But when I'm not doing that, this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing. So my books that you see here behind me, or my programs, or anything you see on my sites, Work on Your Game University, and all those things. When I tell you I'm a consultant and I run a coaching program, this is the kind of stuff that I'm spending time on. I'm not talking to somebody doesn't join my coaching programs. We could talk about Donald Trump and Elon Musk or any of that bullshit. That's for the masses of people. And I don't mind serving the masses every now and then, but my business is not based around serving the masses of people, which is why I don't tend to do stuff, or mostly, for the most part, aside from the live streams that I do things that are about what the masses care about, because what the masses of people are usually, generally speaking, average people. And I'm not trying to serve average people. There's nothing wrong with serving average people. Walmart is a $1 billion business and they serve average people, and the entertainment industry serves average people. And there's a lot of money to be made if that's the route you want to go. But as human beings, we can't do everything. We have to pick and choose where we want to put our resources, because everything has a cost, everything has a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios. So at some point, you got to decide what you are going to do, what you're not going to do. So with all that background, King Work said, this is your best type of content. Well, thank you. I agree. This is the reason why most of my material, when I'm talking about stuff, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Whereas some people might only know about me from the current event stuff, because the current events tends to draw more attention. So more people might just find me specifically on TikTok. Those of you who are following on these other apps, you might know my other stuff because I put a lot of that stuff out there. But on TikTok, I put the same stuff y'all see I put on TikTok. But the live stream, for whatever reason, TikTok's algorithm just tends to reward whatever I was doing or whatever I have been doing. I'm still having an account on TikTok as of today. Let me see what's going on over there right now, as a matter of fact. Right now on TikTok, I got 17,000 or so followers. I'm probably going to surpass Instagram. I think I got like 20 on Instagram. So I'm going to surpass Instagram before, what is July now? I say by, it depends. Actually, it depends on what happens, how big of an audience I can draw. Because I got to you pick up more people, the more people seeing your live. So Thursday, when I was talking about P. Diddy, I would have picked up a ton more people had I not got kicked off in the middle of my fucking live stream. But I would say by Halloween. I say by Halloween of this year. By Halloween of this year, I'll probably have more followers on TikTok than I got on Instagram. And I've had Instagram way longer than I've been using TikTok. I'm saying that to say TikTok's algorithm, for whatever reasons, just surfaces these live streams more than Instagram does. And again, why that's happening, I don't know. Y'all can talk to TikTok about that. So let's get into the topic we're actually going to discuss here today, which is going to be Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. All of you have heard of Isaac Newton. Maybe you know a little bit about him or what he was about, who he was. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know. I'm going to get into explaining this because I'm a person who likes to look at things logically and objectively. And I like to break things down into laws, principles, and into hard, unbendable rules, because in my experience and just knowing myself as a human and knowing the people who I've worked with, and I've talked to hundreds, thousands of people over the years, is that people tend to be more able to take action and get things done when the rules are clear. And the what's the word that I would use here? Let's just say the instructions are very specific. And I find, especially working with entrepreneurs, that clarity is the biggest challenge, that because a lot of entrepreneurs don't have it. They don't have clarity. What am I doing? Where am I going? How do I do this? How do I solve this problem? What should I do next? A lot of people just don't have clarity. Now, what does this have to do with Sir Isaac Newton and the laws of motion? Is that they are literally laws of motion. So when something is a law, here's the good thing about a law, everybody, is that they are unbendable. You can break them, but there's going to be a penalty if you try to break it. And they're black and white. That's the beautiful thing about laws, rules, principles, standards, is that they're black and white. There's one way that this works, and every other way it's not going to work. And I am the type of person, I tend to think this way. I tend to speak this way. And it makes it very easy for people to act when they understand things on a principle and law level, if that makes sense. So when we talk about the laws of motion, understand that these are etched in stone. They are etched in stone. They are unchangeable. It doesn't matter how old they are not changing. You can break these laws, but if you break the law, there's a penalty for breaking the law. Okay. And even though I am far from a scientist, I like to use scientific laws to explain to you how they apply to you in everyday life. That's what I'm going to do here today. So this is not a science conversation, by the way. So any of you thought I was about to talk about science, I'm not. I'm about to explain to you the scientific law. Then I'm going to tell you how it applies to you in your everyday life. Now, you're ready for that? First point is this. First law is called the law of inertia. Now, what is the law of inertia? The law of inertia states, and let me make sure we're good on every stream here. Yes. The law of inertia states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion at a constant velocity unless acted upon by an unbalanced external force. So we'll just call that an outside force. All right, that's the law of inertia. Now, everything I'm talking about here today, folks, I've done entire podcast episodes on these subjects. So if you just go to workonyourgamepodcast.com or just go to the link that you see pinned here on whatever app you're watching me, you'll see the link to my podcast. You can listen to the whole episodes where I've broken these things down. Everything I bring up here today, I've broken down in an episode at some point, and I'll probably talk about it again sometime in the future. The way that we can describe the law of inertia, if you want to put this in a common everyday language, not the scientific definition that I just gave you, is momentum and stagnation. Inertia is momentum and stagnation from different sides. So when everything is working in your favor and you feel like you have this good flow going and nothing is stopping it, That's called momentum. And when nothing's working, no matter what you try, you feel like you're kind of stuck in the same spot and nothing's moving. That's called stagnation. These are two sides of the same coin. That coin is called inertia. This is a scientific law. Then when things are moving, they keep moving. When nothing's happening, nothing happens until some type of outside force changes the dynamic of the situation. That's what it means. So something has to make things change. If you want things to change in your life, something has to happen. Some type of outside force needs to force the change to occur. That change that occurs is usually in the form of what we know as energy. Energy is a scientific thing, it's not just a metaphorical thing. So in common terms, again, as I said, momentum is stagnation, and something has to come from the outside in order to make things change. And the simple way to understand this is that if you want change to occur in your life, whether there's something happening that you want it to stop, or there's nothing happening and you want things to start, you must do something to initiate the change. And to initiate change, you need energy, which is scientifically defined as the capacity to do work. That's what energy means. And when I say work, it doesn't mean get a job. Work means for you to have an effect on an object. So, for example, this remote control that goes to my fan, I have it sitting on the table here. In order for me to pick it up, I've done work. And work is mechanically defined as I've changed the state of this remote control. It was sitting on the desk like this. Now it's in my hand like this. In order for me to actually make this movement, I need a certain amount of energy in my body to do this movement. It doesn't feel like anything, but there's some energy. My body had no energy. I wouldn't be able to move this remote control, and I wouldn't be able to have an effect on it, which is metaphorically called work. Not metaphorically, excuse me, mechanically called work. In other words, keep this, again, I'm trying to keep this really simple in everyday language for everybody, is that if you want something to change in your life, you need to come up with the energy, doesn't matter where you get it from, to make the situation different. Because if you just sit there and do nothing, the situation is not going to change on its own. And if it does change on its own, it's going to change in a way that is not under your control and not the way or when or how you want it to change. There may be change, but the change you're going to get is probably not the change that you want. And one thing we should understand that in life, the law of entropy, which we may talk about later on here today, is that most change, if it happens by default, it's a change for the worse. Things get worse when you just allow them to happen on their own. So if you want something to stop happening or you want something to start happening, energy must be used. Either way, all right, something must be done. Okay. And the more capacity you have to disturb the momentum of stagnation in a situation, the more capability you have of creating change in your life. So if you ever heard people these days, you hear people talking about change all the time. We want change, change, change. Now, why do people get so excited for change? One of the reasons that change is such a popular thing that people talk about these days is because there's always a thing that when a new generation of people come into a space, whether that's teenagers growing up or it's people coming into a new industry or people getting introduced to a new thing, it's human nature that a new wave of people are going to want to disturb the way that things have been going before. This is a natural thing. All right, things were going this way with the previous generation. Now we're the new generation. We want to do something different than what the previous generation did. Even if what the previous generation was doing was working, the people who come in new want to change it. Why? This is human nature. Human nature is just you're going to go against the grain. So all of you have parents. And if you had a relationship with your parents, they may have done things a certain way. You are going to see how they were doing it. Even if the things they were doing apparently were producing positive results, you're going to do something that's a little bit different, at least maybe a lot different than what your parents did, simply because they're your parents. And you want to establish your own identity. So you're going to, by nature, go against the grain in some ways of what the people who came before you did. Because if you're just a carbon copy, then who are you? You don't have any identity yourself. You're just following exactly what they did. Doesn't mean you can't glean from them, and doesn't mean you can't honor and respect what they did. And you might even be working in the family business, but you're going to change it up in some way, shape, or form simply because you're a human being. So this whole thing about change, the reason why change is such a popular thing is because of what I just told you. In order for the change to happen with any inertia, that there has to be some energy. And at the same time, you flip that around. Anytime you talk about change, you are going to attract the energy of a bunch of other people. Now, understand this. When you talk about changing a situation that is already set in place, it's going to attract the attention of a whole bunch of people for several reasons. Number one, change sounds like something to do. And a lot of people don't really have anything to do or anywhere to go in their lives. So they basically stuck in stagnation. Most people are living lives of stagnation. So when you offer them change, you offer them a way to go in a different direction from how they've been going, then they will take that opportunity and say, okay, well, here's something to do. I mean, it's better than the nothing that I got going on right now. So I might as well jump over here and do that. So let me interrupt myself here. And let me put a story on on TikTok. Let people know that I am over here. Those of you who usually watch the lives on TikTok, I'm suspended for the week. I'll be back on Friday, but I am live right now. I'm on YouTube, X, Rumble, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So just click the link in my profile. You'll be able to watch the live stream right now. I am live. All right. So now here's the thing with TikTok. When you do TikTok stories, they put this music in the background automatically. You can't turn this shit off. Okay, but we took care of that. So now back to what I was saying. The reason why people get excited for change is because it gives them something to do other than the nothing that they have going on. Most people are doing a whole bunch of nothing. And when I say nothing, doesn't mean they're just sitting and literally doing nothing. But most people don't have anything in their lives that is exciting to them. So if you offer them, hey, we're going to go change things. Things are like this over here. We're just going to go change it. Even if your reason for change doesn't exist, even if your logic behind the change makes no sense, even if what you want to change it to is actually going to make the situation worse or very uncertain, there's a bunch of people who are going to sign up for the change. Why? Because they ain't got shit else to do. All right. Remember the movie Friday when Smokey is talking to Craig? He said, it's Friday. You ain't got no job and you ain't got shit to do. So you might as well smoke some weed. All right? And Craig smoked some weed. Why did Craig smoke weed? Why? He didn't have a reason to smoke the weed. He smoked the weed because he had nothing better to do. And his drug addict friend, Smokey, his degenerate drug dealer, Smokey, convinced Craig that he might as well do something because he ain't got nothing else going on. And that is literally what happened. If y'all saw that movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People will just do stuff because they ain't got nothing else to do. This is the reason why many of you may be familiar with the saying that they say the idle mind is a devil's workshop. When you don't have anything else to do, usually you get enticed into doing something stupid or useless simply because there's no better option. The reason why you see so many people getting excited about quote unquote change these days, they don't even say what they want the change to be. They just want change. All right, we're fighting. We're in the fight for change. We're in the movement for change. You see people saying this. You see corporations saying this stupid shit. You see companies like Nike were saying this. Big companies saying we just want change. We want the move for change. Why do you want change? What are you changing? What are you changing it to? Why does this change make sense? How is it going to improve on the situation that we already have? Most of the time, they can't even answer the fucking question, but they want to change something just because. Why? Because people ain't got nothing else to do. And most people are average with nothing going on in their lives, nothing that excites them, just living lives of stagnation. And if you offer them something that sounds exciting, like change, just for the sake of change, they're going to sign up. This is why change gets so much attention. Whenever someone just throws out change, let's just change the situation. And this is the reason why change draws energy, and the reason why energy is required for change. Now, again, where that change goes is anybody's guess. It depends on the circumstance. But this is the way that it works. So if you want to break the inertia of any situation, you need energy. And if you offer people a chance to change, they'll sign up again, even if it sounds stupid. So that's the first thing you need to understand about the Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. The first one is the law of inertia. Everybody got that one? Good. Second law of motion by Sir Isaac Newton is force equals mass times acceleration. Force equals mass times acceleration. So F equals ma. If you may remember that equation from when you were in school. So here's a scientific definition of this. The acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the net force acting on it and inversely proportional to its mass. Now, I don't need you to understand that. I'm going to give it to you in plain language. The regular, everyday language that translates that. Heavier things take more force to move and or to stop. The heavier a thing is, it takes more energy, more force to either get it moving or to stop it from moving. And it does not just mean physically. I want you to understand this on a metaphorical level as well as on a logical, rational level. So literal level is a better way of saying it. Also with regards to impact force, which is another form of force. The shorter the time of the impact, the greater the force of the impact. Think about this one. The shorter the duration of the impact, the greater the force of the impact. So if I was to bang my fist on the table like this, it has a certain amount of impact on the desk. But if I was to bang my fist faster, it's the same bang, but the faster I do it, the stronger the impact. Does everyone understand what that means? Let me explain it. If you can spread out the impact of a thing, it lessens its impact, or at least the feeling of the impact. So I'll give you some examples. If you want to pay for something, often online these days, you want to buy something, you can buy it either you can pay full price, you can pay it on a payment plan. So it's like if you're buying a car, most people buy their cars on payment, or they'll lease the car and you got to make a payment every month or so. And then there's also the option, if you want to, you can just buy the car. You just pay the whole $40,000, $100,000 for the car, or you pay $500, $200, $300 a month for the next 48 months or however long it takes to pay for it. One of the reasons that people choose payment plans, even if they have the money to pay it in full, is because it has less of an impact on your wallet and maybe on your financial psyche. If I pay $20 a month rather than paying $200 right now. If I pay $20 a month for 10 months, that's $200, or I could pay $180 right now, but you want to hold on to your cash. So I'll just spend $20 today, and it feels like less of an impact. But if you actually logically think about it, you're actually spending more money because you didn't pay it up front. But a lot of people buy on payment because of the psyche of it feels like less of an impact because I'm not spending as much right now on the spot. If we take this to a tangible thing, it's kind of like I was in a boxing gym this morning. If you were to punch a pillow, there's a certain amount of impact that your hand has on the pillow. You'll feel it, but it doesn't feel like anything, right? If you were to put your hands, you would take your hand and punch a punching bag, it may not hurt you, but you definitely feel it. If you were to take that same hand, that same fist, and with the same amount of effort, punch a concrete wall, is going to hurt. You're probably going to hurt your hand. You might even break your hand. What's the difference between the three things? You put the same amount of effort into each punch. What's the difference? The difference is the pillow, because it's so soft, it extends the amount of time it takes to make the impact. You punch a pillow, the pillow goes like this, right? It folds in because of all the feathers inside the pillow. So the amount of time it takes to make the impact is extended like this. If you punch a punching bag, and you've seen a punching bag before. Now, punching bag, it is not as soft as a pillow, but it's not as hard as a concrete wall. So it gives a little bit, depending on how hard you hit it, gives a little bit, but you're going to feel that on your hands. And if you hit it a bunch of times without properly taking care of your hands or knowing how to throw a proper punch, you can really hurt your hands. So it is more impact because it doesn't move the way the pillow does. So it's going to move like this much. Hit a punching bag and move like this much, right? A pillow moves like this. Punching bag moves like that. So it's more impact. If you hit a concrete wall, or you would just go outside to the sidewalk and just punch the ground, now that doesn't move at all. Right? That's concrete. It doesn't move. Right? You need a jackhammer to move concrete. You hit a concrete wall, it doesn't move at all. It pushes back against you. And if you hit it hard enough, you're going to break your hand. And you won't be able to use your hand for a couple of weeks. You'll probably be in a cast. That's impact force. The quicker the impact, the stronger the force. So, for example, something that happens quickly and immediately and you didn't see it coming has more of an impact on you than something that you saw coming from far away. You knew it was about to happen and you were prepared for it. That one, at least if you know it's coming, you can deal with it. But if something surprises you out of nowhere, you didn't even see it coming, now it has much more impact on you simply because you weren't able to get ready for it. Like if somebody is about to punch you in the face and you're in the middle of a boxing ring, you see them load up their hand and you see them turn, they slowly throw the punch and it hit you. You see it coming, at least you can get ready to get hit in the face. Now, somebody punches you in the face like Floyd Mayweather or Roy Jones, and they're so quick, you didn't even see the punch coming, and then they hit you. That's the one that knocks you out. Or Muhammad Ali, for example. And you follow boxing, one of the things that you should say about Muhammad Ali is that he wasn't the strongest puncher. There were a lot of guys who punched harder than he did. Joe Frazier punched harder than him, Joe Louis, George Foreman. A lot of the fighters that Ali fought and defeated, they were heavier punchers than Muhammad Ali. Now, why was Ali able to knock some of these guys out is because Ali would hit you with a punch that you didn't see coming because he was so quick. So he had enough strength. He wasn't as strong in hitting as George Foreman, but because of the quickness of it and because you didn't see it coming, he was able to knock you out with a weaker punch simply because you weren't able to prepare for it. Now, if George Foreman hits you, it might knock you out because he's so strong, but at least you got to get ready and brace yourself for getting hit. But because you can't see it, it has a lot more impact. So what impact force means, what I want you all to understand here, the part I want you to take away from this, is that the faster you can make something happen, the more impact it has. So this is the reason why I talk all the time about speed. Speed of execution, speed of decision making, speed of thinking. The reason why speed matters is because it allows you to make more impact on life. I'm not even talking about other people or competition. The more impact you want to have on your own life, you increase that by doing things faster, getting things done quicker. So you made a decision, you said, I'm going to do this. The sooner you act on it, the higher the likelihood that you actually do it. Everybody understand that? If you want to have more impact on your own life, forget about everybody else. You want to have more impact on your own life, you need to reduce the amount of time time friction between a thought and an action, and a decision and an activity. Why? Because the slower you move between thought and action, the less chance you actually do it, the less impact the thing's going to have. How many of you ever been in a situation where in whatever moment in your life, maybe you just had a thought, maybe you just got out the shower, maybe you just woke up in the morning, maybe somebody said something, you were listening to something, and it gave you an idea. And you get excited about that idea. Like, damn, I need to do that. Yeah, I could do that. Here's something I can do. You start thinking about this thing you could do and how good it would be and all the stuff you could do about it. And then you wait. You don't actually take action on it. You think about it, or you sit on it for a half hour or a day or a week or a month. And then when you revisit the idea, you remember what you told yourself 20 minutes ago or 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, that thing you could do, you end up not doing it. Even though you thought about it again. You didn't forget. You thought about it again and you still didn't do it. Now, the question is, why didn't you do it? You didn't do it because the momentum, you're following me here, first of all, was inertia. Momentum is stagnation. The momentum you had mentally when you first had the thought, you allowed that momentum to die because you didn't take action when you were thinking about it. And because you allowed the momentum to die, even though you thought about it again, the thought is there. Logical thought is there. The energy is not there. The energy is the momentum. Momentum is energy. So if you think about doing something and you're excited about doing it, and let's say it's some bold action that you might take, and in the moment that you're thinking about it, you do nothing, what happens is the energy goes down. The thought is still there. Logically, it still makes sense. But since the energy drops, you can have all the thoughts in the world that you want, but with no energy to go with the thought, you won't take the action. How many of you have ever experienced this? You thought about something, you know you want to do it, you know you need to do it, you know logically you believe it would help you, but because there's no energy behind the thinking, you do nothing. Everybody's had this experience. Now, what I'm telling you is a strategic way to lessen the amount of times this happens in your own life, because in my experience in life, and I think most of you would agree, any regret that I have is something that I thought about, but I didn't do. I don't have any regrets of things that I did, even if it didn't work. If I do something and it doesn't work, I don't regret it because at least I did it. At least I did it. It's like if you're at the mall and you see a girl you're interested in and she notices you and you're looking at her and you keep looking, but then you never say anything to her, you're going to regret the fact that you never approached the girl. And you'll never know what happened because you never talked to her. But if you walk right up to the girl and talk to her and she says, I'm not interested, or I got a boyfriend, or she turns you down, all right, maybe she turns you down. Maybe it's a little bit disappointing. Maybe you'll be embarrassed depending on the situation, but at least you approached her. So at least you know what happened. And the reason why you approached her is because the momentum, the energy you got when you thought about it, you acted on the logical thought immediately with energy. When you separate logic from energy, you usually end up defaulting to wherever the energy is. And if the energy is low, you end up doing nothing. This is how people accumulate regrets in life, by thinking about shit that they don't do. Most of you don't have regrets of things that you did do. You have regrets of things that you did not do. Even if, again, the thing you did do didn't work, even if it fails and explodes in your face, blows up in your face negatively after you take an action, at least you did it. The stuff you didn't do that you're always thinking about, what if I had done that? So impact force is about increasing the speed of the things that you do, folks. So the interpretation of this, we're talking about force equals mass times acceleration. By the way, anybody who came in the middle here, we're talking about Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. So it's this. Here's the interpretation. If you want to have more force in what you do, you need to make what you do more important, and you need to make it happen faster. You need both. Okay? Force equals mass times acceleration. So they help each other. If you want to be more forceful and you want to have more impact on yourself, on the world, on the industry, on your job, on the people you deal with, etc., you must do things that matter more, and you need to do them faster. Not one or the other, both. Not one or the other, both. In basketball, there was this player named Shaquille O'Neal. All of y'all heard of Shaquille O'Neal, right? One of the things that made Shaq so dominant and so imposing when he first came into the NBA is not because of his size, because there were a bunch of players in the NBA who had been his size before. He wasn't the first guy who was 7 feet, 300 pounds. He was not the first. And the combination, though, was the fact that he was 7 feet and 300 pounds, and he was quick as a motherfucker, on top of the fact that he was big. People had seen guys who were quick. You know, Allen Iverson was quick. Allen Iverson's like not even 6 feet tall and like 160 pounds. So he was small. He didn't have a whole lot of force, but he had a lot of acceleration. And then we have seen people who are big. There were plenty of big guys who played in the NBA. They're usually 7 feet, 300 so pounds, but they're slow as hell because they're so big, they're slow. It takes them a long time to move. Shaquille O'Neal was a force of nature. Why? because he was big and fast at the same time. And players who played against him didn't know what to do with that. I know how to deal with a big, slow guy. I know how to deal with a small, fast guy. I don't know how to deal with a guy who's both big and fast at the exact same time. That's one of the reasons he was so dominant, because of the force and the acceleration at the same time. LeBron James is another good example. Smaller than Shaquille O'Neal, but incredibly fast while at the same time having a whole lot of force. LeBron's not a small guy. So the whole point here, folks, is, again, let me say it again. You want to have more impact in anything that you do, especially just within your own life. You must do things that are more important. In other words, things that if and when they happen, they make more of a difference. In other words, stop doing small stuff and do bigger stuff, and do them fast. The challenge for most people, in my experience, is that they try to pick one or the other and then give themselves excuses as to why it's okay to sacrifice the other. So someone will do a whole bunch of small shit and say, well, I'm just getting small things done. This is how you feel busy, but you're not doing anything that actually, you're not being productive. There's a difference between busyness and production. Busyness is you're just doing stuff so you're active. Production is when you're doing things that actually matter. And effectiveness is when you're doing things that truly matter. So the more effective you are, well, the more important things you do, the more effective you'll be. So pick big things to do. And the other thing is people will even try to do a big thing, but they'll be slow as hell at getting to it. So somebody will say to me, well, Jerry, I want to write a book. I say, all right, cool. All right. And then 3 months later, I say, how's it going with that book? Well, they haven't started writing it yet. No, you're taking too long. You're moving too slow. You can't be slow, folks, if you want to do important things. You want to do important things, you can't be slow, for all the reasons that I'm explaining to you. Is that, number one, the energy that you have when you think about doing the important thing will dissipate if you don't take action on it. The human animal responds to energy. If you don't give it energy, then it will lose its initiative. Personal initiative is an energy. Again, the example that I just gave you, you're at the mall, you see a girl that's pretty. The energy that you feel the exact moment that you see the girl is what you need to walk over to the girl. If you stop and think about, should I walk over to the girl, your energy is going down by the second. And by the time you finally decide, logically, I should go talk to the girl, you have no more energy. Therefore, you're scared. Therefore, you don't talk to the girl. You just missed your opportunity. Why? Because your energy, you allowed your energy to drop. The best time to take action on a decision is in the exact moment in which you have made the decision. Right there in that moment, because now the energy's up. Mentally, you're locked in. You're like, damn, I need to do that. Do it right now. Do something right now that locks you into the decision. Now, the decision you made might be something like very big that you can't do right there in the moment. However, you can do something that ties you to the decision so that you at least have a little bit of momentum going. Just thinking about things is not enough to create momentum, everybody, in case any of you didn't know. And I would bet, just from what I know about people, that every one of you who's listening to me right now has some things in your life that you've been thinking about for a while. You have not taken any action on it. And the longer you think about it, the lower the energy and the less chance you ever do it. Now, you can tell me I'm right, or you can tell me I'm right, because I know I'm right. I've talked to enough people. I know I see this pattern over and over again. So the importance of the thing you do is what we call mass. The speed in which you do it is what we're going to call acceleration. Force equals mass times acceleration. You want to have more force in life, bigger things, faster. Okay, everybody got it? The more attention you can command, and that generally can lead, if we're talking business, that can lead to more money being made. More attention, more energy. Most of the people who listen to the material that I put out, are you looking to make a serious impact on life? You're not out here just trying to do little, small things. Only thing you need is to do big and important things and do them fast. All right, simple as that. That's how you create force. Third law. We're talking here about Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion for those who came in the middle here. The third law of motion by Sir Isaac Newton is the law of action and reaction. This one, all of you have heard of. This one, I don't even need to define it because all you know what it is, but let me say it anyway. Scientifically, it says, the same way that most of us talk about it, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Everybody's heard of that before, right? Nobody, that's not new to any of you. Maybe none of you thought about force equal mass times acceleration. You never thought about inertia, but everybody's heard of this one. The everyday way that I would talk about this even further is what we call opportunity costs or trade-offs. If you're familiar with my work, you heard me talk about both of these things extensively. What is an opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is everything that you're not doing for everything that you decide to do. So, for example, this morning I was at the gym working out. The opportunity cost of me being at the gym working out was that I was not sitting here doing a live stream at 5:30 this morning because I was in the gym. Right now, I'm sitting here doing this live stream. The opportunity cost of me doing this live stream is that I'm not in the gym working out. So opportunity cost is everything you are not doing because of the thing you decided to do. So everything has a cost. If you decide you're going to live in Los Angeles, the opportunity cost is you can't live in New York or Detroit or Atlanta or Miami. You decide to live in Detroit, the opportunity cost is everywhere else in the world that you're not living. And everything has an opportunity cost because human beings, we have a few limitations. Not a ton, but a few limitations. One is that you can only physically be in one place at a time. Two is that you can only focus on one thing at a time. Three, you can only physically do one thing at a time. These are limitations of human beings, and the opportunity cost is everything you decide you will do. The cost is everything that you're not doing. So when you make decisions about what you are going to do, where you are going to go, where you are going to focus, you're sacrificing everything else that you're passing on in that exact moment. This is the scientific law of action and reaction, also known as trade-offs. Everything in life has a trade-off. Anything you decide to do, there's a cost to it. If you want to wake up early in the morning, like I do, the trade-off is either you got to go to sleep early the previous day, or you're eventually, biologically, your body's going to catch up to you and you're going to be forced to do something about the sleep pattern because you can't just not sleep. There's no human who can do that. The trade-off is, again, anything you do, there's a cost. And what everyone needs to understand, all you need to understand is that anything you do in life, there's a cost. Even if you don't know about the cost, does not mean that the cost does not exist. So your job, anything you decide to jump into, you better find out what the cost is of doing it because there is a cost. And anything that you do that matters, we just talked about force equals mass times acceleration. You do something that's really important, there's a cost to doing an important thing. You got to ask yourself if you're willing to pay the cost for that important thing that you want to do. For example, I just finished reading this book called That Will Never Work. I don't know if any of you ever read it. It's written by this guy named Mark Randolph. Most of you probably never heard of Mark Randolph, but he is one of the founders of a company that all of you heard of. The company's called Netflix. And the book is all the story of how Netflix started, written by this guy. He was like the president of the company. He's one of the co-founders. Then he became the president after this guy named Reed Hastings came in. Some of you may have heard of Reed Hastings, or is it Reed Hoffman? I can't remember. Either Reed Hastings or Reed Hoffman. Let me look it up. Reed Hastings, I think, is the LinkedIn guy. No, Reed Hoffman is the LinkedIn guy. All right, so Reed Hastings, I think, is the Netflix guy. Let me see. Reed Hastings. Yeah, Reed Hastings is the Netflix guy. Okay, so Reed Hastings. He's the guy who many of you may have heard of. He's the guy who runs Netflix to this day. He was one of the guys working with Mark when they first started the company. I'm bringing all this up to say that Mark ended up selling off what he owned in Netflix for a big payout, probably around 2003, something like that. Let me see if I can find it. Because he talked about it in his book, how he was able to sell whatever he had and why he left. Let me see if I can find it. So Mark Randolph, Netflix co-founder, because he was talking about how when he started the company, any of you ever read a story of people starting businesses, when they start, they're on a shoestring budget, they don't really have money, and they're wondering how they're going to pay their bills. And if they got a family, they're trying to figure that out and this, that, and the third. And they went through this for several years while they were starting Netflix. That's the cost. Eventually, Netflix popped off. And understand, not every business pops off. Netflix popped off. They put out their IPO, which is when they went public, basically. A whole lot of money came into the company. And he departed the company in 2003. So he was only there. He stepped down as CEO in 1999. Reed Hastings took his spot. He departed the company in 2003 after his IPO. Most people never even heard of this guy. I never heard of this guy until I read this book. I just got the book because it sounded interesting. And he says they were offered $14 to $16 million by Amazon for the company. They didn't sell it. I'm trying to find out how much he sold out for when he actually sold all his stock. So Netflix market cap is $129 billion. Hastings owns 2% of the company. He's worth $3.3 billion. As for Randolph, his stock at the time of the IPO was worth $250 million. And he wrote about that, how he kind of sold it and moved on. So this guy made $250 million. Now, that's a lot of money to start a company. But understand, in order to get to that $250 million, he had to pay the cost of the uncertainty of, is this even going to work? Again, just because you start a business does not mean you're going to make $250 million. Point is the trade-off. This is action and reaction. And understand that you don't always control the reaction to your actions. Meaning, something that you do, there will be a cost for that thing that you did. You don't always control what the cost is. And this is the risk. This is the reason why a lot of people should not go into entrepreneurship, because a lot of people cannot deal with the uncertainty of the risk that you take when you decide to become an entrepreneur, because there's no guarantee of anything working. So if it was a guarantee, then we might as well just call it a job. Because job is a guarantee. You're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Entrepreneurship, there's no guarantee. And that's the cost. The cost to, you ever heard the phrase, the cost to be the boss? So if you want to be the boss of your own entity, of your own life, of your own business, you have to pay the cost of the uncertainty of being the one in charge, because there's no one for you to call if things ain't working. See, when you're not the boss, you can call, if something's not working, you can call on the boss to help you out. When you're the boss, there's nobody to call when things ain't working. You got to call yourself. All right, that's a trade-off. So this is one that, again, all of you have heard before. And the cost, again, can be now or later. It can be directly or indirectly, but there's a cost to everything. Some of you may call this the law of karma. Biggest challenge most people have with this is that most human beings cannot see past their noses, is the way I like to describe it. What that means is most people can only think about things that they can see directly in front of them, and they can't fathom the long-term ramifications of their behaviors. They only think about the short-term ramifications of what they do. So there's a book called, I think it's called Get Smart. It's written by this guy named Brian Tracy, famous personal development guy. And one of the things he talks about in that book is time perspective. And time perspective is a simple concept that all of you will understand as soon as I tell you what it is. It says that the more successful the person, the further into the future they consider the ramifications of their actions. These are also known as delayed gratification. That's the long-term result of what you do. And then immediate gratification. That's getting an immediate result from what you do. Most human beings are so focused on immediate gratification that they don't even consider the long-term ramifications of what they do. As a general rule, the quicker the turnaround from a behavior that you take, the less substantial the thing is that you're doing, as a general rule. In the big picture, the more successful of a person you want to be, the more delayed gratification you have to be willing to accept. That's just a general rule. The more successful the person, the more they focus on delayed gratification, i.e., I make a big payment right now, a bunch of payments right now in the present, and I'm going to get my return on investment further into the future. I don't need to get my return 5 minutes from now or tomorrow morning. I'm okay with getting my return 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 months from now. More successful people are more okay with delayed gratification, whereas the less successful the person, the more they need immediate gratification. And this is what I was explaining at the top of this presentation today when I was telling you why I talk about current events and when my TikTok is not suspended. I talk about current events because it draws the masses of people who are more interested in immediate gratification. See, if I talk about something that happened on the news yesterday, then a bunch of people want to come talk about it because it just happened on the news. It's fresh in everybody's mind and everyone has an opinion. I have an opinion, so we'll talk about it. And I don't mind entertaining the masses on a certain level, but there's only so much of that I can tolerate before I need to go back to doing something of substance, which is when I talk about things like this. Because things like what I'm talking about here today are not going to do anything for you. Well, it may do something for some of you today, depending on how you use it. But this is more long-term, what I'm talking about. What I'm giving you here today is more about the long-term of your life. How can you start implementing these understandings that I'm giving you into your everyday life on a consistent basis so it starts paying off for you 3 years from now, 6 months from now, 10 years from now? Not, oh, I heard somebody on social media talking about Donald Trump and something that happened in Congress or some news item. Yes, that'll give you immediate gratification because it gives you something to talk about, think about, and occupy your mind with. But what is that going to do for you 6 months from now? The fact that you were on Instagram leaving comments about something Donald Trump said 2 days ago, what is that going to do for you 6 months from now? The answer is it's not going to do fucking anything for you. But more people are interested in that than interested in something like this. And this is why, again, the more successful the person, there are fewer successful people than there are average people. So the few successful people are always thinking about delayed gratification. How can what I do today help me 10 years from now? Whereas the less successful, the average people are thinking about immediate gratification. How can I get something that makes me feel good right now in the moment? Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And not for nothing, while we're on the subject, I want you to think about where you are right now as you're listening to this. And when I say where you are, I don't mean geographically. I mean like the application on which you're listening to me. We're all using some form of social media application. Be careful with social media. I use social media. I'm using it right now, but be careful because social media is designed for immediate gratification. The very business model of social media is to give you as much immediate gratification as possible. Why? Because when you keep giving people immediate gratification, they tend to just stick around and give you in exchange. Remember, every action has equal and opposite reaction. They give you in exchange their time, attention, and their energy. This is how social media makes its money, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Social media's business model is to monetize your energy and attention. That's how they, and your time. They get you to give them your energy, attention, and time. Then they go to advertisers and say, look how much time we get from Willa and I Clark and Sasha and Abdullah and CJin and Crazy J Dub and Hawaii and Giraffe Studio and Irma and China and Rodney. Look how much time these people spend on our app. You need to give us this much money, Nike, to run ads on our platform. And Nike says, damn, they're spending that much time on Instagram. Okay, I will pay you for that. And this is how Instagram makes its money. That's their business model. Their business model is to give you as much immediate gratification as possible so that you keep giving up your time. And then they take that time and they sell it to advertisers to make money. That's their entire business. And again, I'm not saying that they're bad. This is good because, listen, most people want immediate gratification. This is the reason why it works. It's a beautiful idea. I've said this before. Now I will say it again. I wish I came up with the idea for social media because I would be making a ton of fucking money. I should have thought of this. Why not just give the average masses of people a whole bunch of immediate gratification and let them keep getting it over and over again. Let them make their own content. I don't even have to make any content. All I got to do is manage the whole thing and I just collect the money. Beautiful idea. Whoever came up with the idea is a fucking genius. And I'm not being facetious. I'm dead serious. Beautiful idea. If social media just gave you delayed gratification, there would still be people using it, but not nearly as many as use it now. For example, I've heard that TikTok, because I know TikTok is based in China, right? And I wouldn't say this if I was actually on TikTok here today. I'm saying it because I'm not on TikTok because they got me suspended for the rest of the week. But in China, if you use TikTok, that there's a limit to how much a kid can use it over the course of a day. They literally put a time limit on how much you can just scroll TikTok the way that we have TikTok. And a lot of the material on TikTok in China is based in personal and professional development, learning, science, engineering, technology, and math. Did y'all know that? In China, TikTok is not like the TikTok that we have here in America. You can't just scroll a bunch of bullshit for 12 hours a day in China on TikTok. You can't do it. They won't even let you do it. The app is designed to stop you from doing it. And if you want to use TikTok, you're getting science, engineering, technology, and math lessons, like delayed gratification, substance material, as opposed to the bullshit that we publish and consume on our social medias, especially on TikTok in the United States of America. And if people really thought about that, the same way you should think about, any of you's ever read any book by the people who started companies like Google and Facebook, because a bunch of them have written books. I read several of them. The people who have started these companies, Google, Facebook, people who are part of the team. I don't mean like Mark Zuckerberg himself, but people who are part of the team, whose names you probably wouldn't know. They often, you've heard them say this over and over again, they don't let their kids have smartphones. Like some of the people who helped start Facebook don't let their kids use social media. But he started Facebook and he made $1 billion because he was part of the team that launched Facebook, but he doesn't let his own kids use social media. Think about what that means. The people who helped start Google don't have a whole bunch of social media apps on their own phones, and they don't let their kids have phones till they're 18. And they're part of the people who started the companies that made them rich. They don't let their own kids use the very thing that made them a whole bunch of money. A lot of people who work at tobacco companies don't smoke. All right, y'all got to understand that there's a separator between the capitalistic intention and what actually works for the person. Y'all need to pay attention to the things that the people who actually sell you the stuff are doing themselves. Are they even using the very products that they're selling? A lot of times they're not, depending on what industry we're talking. And that should tell you something. That is one thing to be on the seller side, another thing to be on the buyer side. When it comes to social media, you all need to be on the sales side, not the buy side. I have some clients of mine who are in real estate, and they talk about this all the time, that they rather be on the sales side than the buyer side because they just tend to like working with the sellers. because the money comes in faster when on the sales side. All of you on social media, be a seller, not a buyer. In other words, a producer more than you are a consumer if you're going to use these things. What happens here is I'm continuing to explain here this third law by Sir Isaac Newton, was action and reaction. Human beings tend to attribute anything that happens today to something that happened yesterday. They don't think about, wait a minute, this is 5 years in the making, this situation that I'm in. This didn't happen 3 weeks ago. This happened 3 years ago. Most people, again, because they don't have a long time perspective, they tend to think anything happening now must be because of what happened yesterday. When actually what's happening now is happening because of what you've been doing for the last 7 years. Now you're just seeing the benefits or the results of those things that you've been doing. They just add it up. And because most people don't think this way, most people tend to think, or whatever's happening now, again, it's because of this, this, and this. It's kind of like with current events. You take someone like Donald Trump, a bunch of people who don't like him, they'll say, well, everything bad happening now is because Donald Trump did this, this, and this. And that's not actually, for the most part, is not true. It's what's been happening for the last 25 years in government. Donald Trump just happens to be the representative of it. Yes, he's doing some things now, but again, most of these things, especially with big organizations like the United States of America, was a huge organization and government. The things that are happening now that we are feeling the effects of as everyday citizens are not because of something the president did 6 weeks ago. It's because of things that all the presidents have been doing for the last 30 years. Now we're starting to see the results of it. Now people are pointing it out. Now everybody's acting like it just happened 2 days ago. No, it didn't happen 2 days ago. It happened 20 years ago. You're just noticing it now, and you think, and because most people don't think, they can only go off of what their short-term memory tells them, then they just go off what they heard about on news last week, and they assume that's the reason why it's happening now. This is bullshit. And the reason why I don't even try to explain this to the masses of people, because masses of people don't want to be challenged to think. They just want something that makes them feel good in a moment, which is, oh, blame it on that. All right, that thing you saw 2 days ago, that must be the reason why everything is happening. Not true. So anyway, a few years ago, there was a virus. Y'all remember that virus a few years ago? Where they told you if you get the vaccine, you won't get the virus. Y'all remember that, right? Now, we know that was some bullshit. But here's the thing that happened during that time. There were a lot of businesses that went out of business when that virus hit, because these are businesses that are based on people physically coming to their place. So an amusement park might go out of business because nobody was going to amusement parks. A restaurant might go out of business because, nobody's coming to the restaurant. If you had an event space, you might have lost your opportunity to do events, to sell your event space because nobody was doing events. And when a lot of people went out of business during that time period, a lot of people said, or they would attribute their misfortune to the virus. They would say something like, hey, I had a restaurant. My restaurant went out of business because of the virus. That's not true. Your restaurant did not go out of business because of the virus. Your restaurant was already on its way to going out of business. All the virus did was speed up the outcome. What I just explained to you, that most people tend to attribute anything that happens to them to something that just happened yesterday, when actually what happened to you has been already brewing. All that happened is a certain situation may have sped up the outcome. So we talked about force equals mass times acceleration, right? So if you look at the virus, the COVID virus that happened several years ago, there was a lot of mass. It was a very important thing. Whether you liked the way it was responded to, didn't like it, you enjoyed it, you hated it, whatever, we can all agree it was a very important thing. It was important because it had a huge impact on everything we were doing. Even if you didn't want it to, we understand that it did. It impacted everything for everybody. And because of that large amount of force, all it did was accelerate outcomes. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? When a highly impactful thing occurs in life, what it does is take everything that was already about to happen and it makes it happen faster. That's what, you can call it a tragedy. You can call it a crisis. You can call it an emergency. All these things do is speed things up. For example, my mother's father, who was technically my grandfather, but she didn't have a relationship with her own dad, so I didn't have a relationship with him. I knew who he was. He knew who I was, but I didn't really mess with dude. My mom never messed with him. Didn't really know him like that. He left when my mom was a kid. He left the family. So I remember seeing this dude around. So we're talking about the virus here. So around 2017, right? Because the virus happened in 2020. Around 2017, there was a family wedding that I was at. It was in New York City. And my mom's dad, came to the wedding. I don't know why he got invited. I know my cousin didn't invite him. It was my cousin's wedding. My cousin's younger than me. So I know she didn't know this dude like that. I didn't know him. I know she didn't know him. but probably her dad, who's my uncle, he probably invited his own father to the wedding. So that's probably why he was there. So he comes to the wedding and he sees me and he says hello and he asks me a couple random surface level questions. I don't notice it. I didn't really got a relationship with him. But I remember seeing him at the wedding and he was old at this point. He was on his last legs. So he couldn't really walk. He had a walker. He couldn't turn his neck. So when we're sitting at the table at the wedding, I was like, they had those circular tables at the wedding. And I was like 2 seats to his left or 3 seats to his left. And he's trying to talk to me, but he couldn't turn his head to look at me. So he's talking. His eyes are moving, but his head is not moving. So he's looking like this. I'm over here and I'm responding to him, but he couldn't turn his head. He couldn't go to the bathroom by himself. He had already had a stroke. I heard that he had a stroke before this. And I'm like, this dude is he was damn near dead. He was pretty much on the brink. So then the virus happens, right, in 2020, and he passes away during that time period. And then people in my family were like, oh, well, he died from the virus. I'm like, he didn't die from the fucking virus. He was already about to die. All the virus did was speed it up. This is the point that I'm making to you all. That highly impactful event known as the virus took a whole bunch of shit that was already going to happen to a bunch of people and a bunch of businesses and made it happen faster. That's it. So all these people you heard, they passed away from the virus is bullshit. You didn't pass away from the virus. You passed away with the virus. All the virus did was push the gas pedal on your car. Now, you were already about to die. All the virus did was push the gas pedal and make you go faster. So you are going to die in 2 years, but instead you died in 2 months. That's what crisis does, everybody. All right, I'm giving you this example just to help you understand. Your business was already about to go out of business. All the virus did was speed up how fast you went out of business. You were going to go out of business in 3 years. The virus happened, you went out of business in 6 months. You were already about to go out of business. You notice a whole bunch of businesses didn't go out of business, right? During the virus. You notice a lot of companies are still standing after the virus. Why didn't they go out of business? If yours went out of business, why did theirs not also go out of business? Because if that's what the virus is doing, is putting people out of business, why did some people go out and some people didn't? I'm explaining to you why. All it did was speed up what was already going to occur. A lot of people at that time period also, I've heard many people talk about this, that during the virus, they had to rethink their business model. So let's say you ran like a fitness studio, right? And you didn't go out of business during the virus. What'd you do? Well, the first thing you did probably was, okay, we can't tell people to come to the studio because we're in New York City and nobody can come to the studio and they're going to find us and shut us down if we try to bring people to the studio. But we still want to service our clients and they're still paying us technically by the month. How about we make a virtual studio and we let people still do the workouts with us, but they can do it from their living room instead of doing it from the studio. And the companies had to pivot really, really quickly. Any of you heard stories of this where companies like, all right, well, we used to do things this way. Because of the virus, we can't do things that way anymore. We've been thinking about doing this anyway. So how about we make the change now? Because now we ain't got a fucking choice. Again, are y'all noticing what I just said? Crises and emergencies, ladies and gentlemen, force you to do shit that you've been thinking about doing. Now you have no choice but to do it. That's why crises and emergencies and urgencies usually are some of the best things that can happen to us because they take things that we were going to take 3 years to do and they force you to get it done in 3 months because you don't have a choice. Force equals mass times acceleration. Mass is the importance of the thing. Acceleration is how fast it happens. You want to be forced into action. You need an important thing to happen quickly. It can either happen to you or it can happen because of you. But if you want to be forced, you want to force your hand in life, and you want to force things in life, you need important things to happen, and they need to happen fast to where you have no choice but to do something. When you're left with choice, again, I've dealt with thousands of people over the years, from basketball players to entrepreneurs to professionals to lawyers to students to doctors to every industry, young, old, black, white, male, female. When you give people time to do things, they take all the time that you give them. And when you reduce the amount of time someone has to do something, they do it sooner. Simple as that. This applies across the board. All of you listen to this. I don't care how old you are, what you do for a living, where you're from, what you got going on, with your specific situation. If the amount of time that you think you have is reduced in half, you will get things done twice as fast. Guaranteed. Why? Because you don't have a choice. When you give people a choice, they usually take the laziest possible option. So you can think about this as a salesperson, as a marketer, and as a doer yourself. Give people a choice, they'll take the laziest possible option. The one that allows them the most time, the most space, and the most delay. When you force people's hands, they do shit now. The virus forced everybody's hand. Okay, what you going to do now? You've been thinking about that. All right, now you ain't got no choice but to do it. And companies pivoted. They made their changes. They made adjustments. Professional speaking business, for example. In professional speaking business, you go to an event, 2,000 people come to an event, all sit in the same room, and somebody stands on the stage and talks. All right, couldn't do that during the virus. All right, that didn't happen. How quickly did they pivot? Immediately, there was a pivot. Okay, we're still going to have this event. We're still going to have this conference, but it's going to be virtual. So now the speaker is going to be at home in their home studio talking to you, and all of you are going to be at home on your computers watching Zoom. We're still going to have the conference. And we just had the conference online. So then a whole bunch of professional speakers, they went and built home studios, and they went and got the lights, and they set up their cameras, and now they can do presentations from their houses. And now that the virus is over, now you see a lot of speakers do presentations from home. That even though you can go have events again, a lot of companies said, shit, it costs us $1 million to put on this event. We could do the event virtually, and it only costs us $50,000. Why don't we just do events like this? We can still sell the tickets. We can still get the speakers. We can still give people what they need. Nobody has to travel. Nobody has to book a hotel. We don't have to book the conference room. We don't have to worry about people taking time off from work, and we can still serve everybody. Why don't we just do it this way? And they haven't gone back. Now, let me ask you, was there somebody in the company offering this suggestion 3 years before the virus that it just got ignored? Of course there was. They already knew they could have did this, but until their hand was forced, they didn't do shit. This applies to humans the same way it applies to businesses. High-level people, low-level people, everybody. Force equals mass times acceleration. Since most people only focus on what's directly in front of them, a lot of people ascribe their outcomes to what's happening right now in the moment. That is not why you're in the position that you're in. That is not what happened. Most of your outcomes are not a result of something that just happened 5 minutes ago, something that happened 5 years ago that you've continually allowed to exist, and now you are where you are. All that being said, folks, let me recap these three things. We're talking about Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. Number 1 law is the law of inertia. That an object in motion tends to remain in motion. Object not in motion tends to remain not in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. These are also known as momentum and stagnation. Everything's working and flowing. That's momentum. Nothing's working at all. It's called stagnation. In order to change either one, you need energy. Energy is defined as the capacity to do work, to have an impact on a situation. Second law is force equals mass times acceleration. In simple terms, this means the bigger and or more important a thing is, and the faster that thing happens or the faster it moves, the more impact it has. If you want to have more impact, you want to have the same amount of force, but you want to do it faster. The faster something happens, the more impact it makes. If someone throwing a punch at you like this, and it comes at that pace, it hits you, but it doesn't really hurt you. Now, Floyd Mayweather throwing his right hand at you that you don't even see coming, or Roy Jones with a left hook, all right, you don't see it coming. That has a lot more impact, not because of how strong it is, but because of how quickly it happens. The quickness of a thing increases its force. So any of you has ever had this bad idea that it doesn't matter how long it takes you to do something, as long as you do it, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Now, if you make $50,000 a year for 20 years, for 25 years, then that's $1 million. $50,000 every year for 25 years is $1 million. Or is it? Actually, I think it's 20 years. Let me check my math. 50,000, I think it's 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. You made $50,000 a year for 20 years. So you start working when you're 25, and by the age of 45, you made $50,000 every year. You made $1 million. Now, is your financial force the same as somebody who makes $1 million a year? So let's say you made that 50 grand a year for 20 years, and you're 45. Now you have earned $1 million. Now somebody else, they're also 45, and that year they earned $1 million. So you both made $1 million. Is it the same? Of course it's not the same, because one person made $1 million in a year, you made $1 million in 20 years. And I would guess if you made $50,000 a year for 20 years, it's not like you sitting there with $1 million in your account, right? It's not like you saved every single dollar. You had to spend that. You had to pay bills, or you had to put gas in your car. It's not the same thing. So this idea that some people have, this is just basically people use it as an excuse to be slow. It doesn't matter how long it takes me to get the outcome, as long as I get the outcome. Yes, it does matter how long it takes. It absolutely matters. If you're able to make $1 million in a year, would you rather do that, or you want to spread it out over 20 years? Because spread out over 20 years is 50 grand a year. Most people would choose a year. Why? Because it's faster. Why does that matter? because you're able to have more impact. You could do a whole lot more if you can make $1 million a year than having to wait 20 years to get the $1 million. Everyone understands this. Yet a lot of people give themselves the excuse that they can take longer to get things done. No, you can't. Well, actually, you can, but you're going to have less impact. So that's the second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. Third law, Sir Isaac Newton, is the law of energy. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Everything has an opportunity cost. Everything has a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios. Everything you do, there is a cost. There are no perfect situations. Anything you do, there's a cost that must be incurred for the thing that you did. If you go to New York, you can't go to Miami. You go to Miami, you can't be in LA. You're in LA, you can't be in Nebraska. You're in Nebraska, you can't be in Dallas. You're in Dallas, you can't be in Toronto. All right. Human beings have a limitation, a couple limitations, not a ton, but a couple. One, you can only be in one physical place at a time. Number two, you can only do physically one thing at a time. Number three, you can only focus on one thing at a time. So everything that you choose to do, everywhere you choose to be, and everything you choose to focus on, the opportunity cost is everything else that you're not doing, focusing on, and being, or being in. And a lot of human beings make the mistake of thinking that they can do it all, have it all at the same time. This is a bad idea because now you're trying to multitask. The problem is, even if you are successfully switching between tasks, because actually task switching, not multitasking, it's impossible to focus on two things at once, is that you're never going to have the full impact on any of the things that you're doing when you're trying to divide your focus amongst multiple things. It's not humanly possible. Humans don't have that capability. We're not that talented. This is why focus matters so much. What does focus mean? It means cutting off everything else to put your attention on one thing. That's what focus is. Everybody understands that. Most of you probably are trying to figure out how to be less distracted. Well, I just told you how. Get focused. Don't try to eliminate distraction. Try to get focused. When you get focused, the distraction goes away automatically. A distraction only exists when you pay attention to it. So right now, I'm looking at the screens and talking to you all. I could be looking at these books at the bottom of my bookshelf. They could be a distraction from me having this conversation right now, but because I'm ignoring them, they are not a distraction. If I was to start looking at them, they become a distraction because I gave them my attention. So if you're not giving something attention, it can't be a distraction by definition. It's only a distraction when you give it attention. So I could be paying attention to the cars that are driving by on the road outside. But if I'm ignoring them, then they're not distracting me. As soon as I start looking at them and thinking about them, now I'm distracted. So distractions don't actually go away, ladies and gentlemen. What you do is you just ignore them and they are no longer a distraction. A distraction must be given attention. It's not a distraction until you give it attention. This is one of the trade-offs of, again, as I explained, you can only focus on one thing at a time. So with all that said, folks, if there are questions, I'll take them. I didn't see any, at least on, I'm looking at Rumble Studio while I'm talking right now. If there are any questions, I'll take them. I'll give you all like 30 seconds and I'll tell you what we got coming up this week. So let me check Rumble Studio, YouTube, X, Facebook. Carla, what's going on? I see you over there. I see you over there on Facebook. Thanks for jumping in on Facebook. On LinkedIn, I don't think I can see comments on LinkedIn. Maybe I can, but I don't see any on LinkedIn. On Instagram, wait, did I check everything yet? On Instagram, King Work said, do you have this topic on YouTube? Yes, just look up Newton's 3 Laws of Motion. Let me look it up and see. I think I called it Newton. So if you just look up my name and look up and just put in the word Newton, Newton, that's his name, Sir Isaac Newton. Let me see if I already have it up. Well, my live stream just came up. And the video I did like 10 years ago on Cam Newton, the football player, that came up. Maybe it didn't come out yet. Did I put this out already? I thought I did. Let me see. Laws of motion. This is coming up. Did I do it? Maybe this episode didn't come out yet. Let me check. I thought it did. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me check, see if it came out yet. It is, where is this? Newton's 3 Laws of Motion was episode number 33, 34. Yeah, this episode should be up. Let me check one more time. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. 33, 34. I'm stream is coming up. This should be out. I don't know why it didn't come out. You can find it on the podcast app, definitely. I'm about to message my audio team to find out why this is not there. This is episode number 33. What is this? 33, 34. Let me check. But anybody else have a question? I'll take it while I'm looking through this to find out. So 33, 33 is out. 33, 32 is out. Yeah, so somebody's dropping the ball over there. Then we're gonna check on that. So this will be out soon. It'll probably be out within the next 24 hours since somebody on the audio team needs a foot in their ass for not getting this out. But it will be out soon. Let me see what number episode we put out today. So we're already at 33, 37, 38. So today was episode number 3341. Let me see if that's out. Yeah, that one's out. So I think they must have just missed one. So we'll make sure to get that fixed. So that's the answer to your question there. So coming up this week, while we're on the subject, tomorrow we're going to get more into a business discussion. We're going to talk, those of you who are in service-based businesses, any of you who runs a service-based business, I'm going to tell you a story that led to this topic. I'll tell you how service-based businesses keep messing up and dropping the ball, especially those of you who are individual entrepreneurs. So if you do something like personal training or coaching, or you sell insurance, or you do a auto detailing business, these kind of businesses where it's a service-based business, I notice people dropping the ball a lot and really messing up, hurting their own business. I'm gonna talk about that probably tomorrow. On Wednesday, we're gonna talk about education and educated people and how people consider themselves educated as if that means they know something when it really doesn't mean you know anything. We're gonna talk about that. And then we're gonna talk about school again on Thursday, what school doesn't teach and why it doesn't teach it. So any of you who's in school or you went to school, I'm gonna tell you what you did not learn in school, and I'm gonna tell you why they didn't tell it to you in school. So I'm not only gonna tell you what they didn't tell you, I'm gonna tell you what it is, then I'm gonna explain to you why they are keeping that material from you. Then on Friday, we'll be back on TikTok. I'll be back to current events on Friday. So we know that Trump's one big beautiful bill passed. We'll talk about that. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the Diddy situation, which I didn't get to finish last Thursday. We got to talk about this alligator Alcatraz thing with Trump and this new detention center they opened down here in South Florida. We're going to talk about, those are the ones I know we're going to talk about. I got a few others that I am sitting on that I might get to, I might not, depending on if I decide to talk about them. So that's where we're at for now. So with all that said, folks, we will wrap this one up. This replay will be on YouTube. I'm already live on YouTube right now. So y'all see this replay on YouTube. Episode 33, 34. I don't know why that's not up on YouTube, but it should be up on YouTube within 24 hours, at the least 72 hours, to make sure that my team gets that video up. For some reason, they dropped the ball on that one video, but the rest of them are up there. You can find it on the podcast platform, though, KingWorks21. If you just go to Apple or Spotify, it's episode number 3334, 3334. And the audio is there. So if the video is not there yet, you can definitely find the audio. And that's that. I will see all of you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic, I already told you what we're going to talk about tomorrow. This one is almost guaranteed. Topic tomorrow is, I just forgot what it was, how service-based businesses drop the ball continually. And it's a business discussion, but all of you should understand it, even if you are not in business, even if you're not in a service-based business, you should understand it because it'll help you understand just the principles of entrepreneurship and also just how I look at entrepreneurship and how it is supposed to work and where a lot of people mess up. So you can learn from that even if you're not in business now or you're not in business yet. I will see you all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Monday. Work on your game. We out of here.